Well, welcome to today's news update. It's Wednesday the 18th of March and this was Japan today. Picture I've just been sent from Japan today. I don't think it requires too much comment really. Now, moving on to other news items. Now, the situation in China. Now, in China, there's only been 13 new infections today. This is quite staggering given where we were about a month ago. So there have been extensive testing, contact tracing, quarantine, chasing up every case, social distancing, doing it all, the comprehensive approach as recommended by the World Health Organization. And that's the result, 13 new infections, quite impressive really. We'll compare that to some other countries in a minute. I'm going to single out Sweden at the moment. I've had several emails from Sweden, and let's just say the response in Sweden has been disappointing to quite a few Swedish nationals who have emailed me. Now, Jordan seems to be doing very well. They've got 40 cases, but it's already locked down, and they've got 14-day quarantine apparently in hotels by the Red Sea, which sounds quite nice. Or the Dead Sea, I'm not quite sure which. Anyway, nice either way. So they seem to be doing quite well in the small country of Jordan. So that's encouraging. Now, Scott in Australia, Scott Morrison. Well, it's not for me to go around judging world leaders, but he's banned indoor gatherings of over 100 and outdoor of over 500. Schools are still opening. There's panic buying all over Australia now, as far as I can gather. So not too much pre-activity really in Australia as far as I can see up to the present point. As indeed my country, the UK, has got this softly approach. People have been asked to do things, and to be quite honest, very often I don't think they are. So our cases carry on increasing. Now, I think our Chief Scientific Officer has realised he hasn't been testing enough. We did mention this several days ago. The World Health Organization mentioned this several days ago, and it looks like my country is finally realising that you can't fight an enemy you can't see. We need to test. We need to be testing more. So we're increasing testing from 7,500 a day up to 10,000 tests per day, which is a step in the right direction, of course. Now, Malaysia, quite a few cases, first deaths. Now, the thing is, when you get the first deaths, that really indicates that the disease has been circulating for some time. Because when deaths start cropping up, that's usually in the second week or even the third week after initial infection. So it's probably been going around in Malaysia quite a bit, and they've reactively closed the borders. So there was a mass gathering of 16,000 people apparently. The mass gathering in a mosque in Kuala Lumpur that finished on the 1st of March, and that's caused a lot of cases and spread around the world. So the idea that you would be still having mass gatherings at the very end of February, beginning of March, is well behind the curve. We were advising against this a long time before that. So quite a bit of spread there in Malaysia from that. Now, Italy, the European epicenter, although other countries are rapidly, not gradually, unfortunately, catching up. Now, Lombardy, where there's this complete lockdown has been in force for over a week now, the number of new cases are decreasing. So in Italy, overall, the cases are dramatically increasing. But in Lombardy, the number of... Now, of course, there's still lots of new infections, but the rate of new infections is reducing. And this is exactly what we saw in China. We saw a massive increase in the number of cases. Then we saw this massive social shutdown, as we have in Italy. And we saw the number of cases starting to fall. Now, I'm not surprised the number of cases in Italy hasn't fallen dramatically up until about today, the last couple of days. Because, of course, the incubation period for this is typically 5 or 6 days. So you wouldn't expect the lockdown to have an effect in the first week. It's going to be the second and third weeks. And it looks like that's starting to work. So this is remarkably encouraging. That by taking these extreme measures that people would sometimes call draconian measures, that I call essential measures, it is starting to work as it worked in China. So let's hope these carry on decreasing in Lombardy, and my expectation would be that because the virus is the same as the virus in China and the people are the same as the people in China, that the social measures taken in China caused a reduction in new rates way down to, what did I say today, just about 8 or 9 new cases or something. I would expect that to be the case in Lombardy as well. So my prediction would be that the cases in Lombardy would now start, the new cases would start dropping off, hopefully, and I would expect quite dramatically as a response to the closing down that the Italian government has instigated. On the news, I've seen these pictures of an empty Rome. It's really quite disconcerting. So Italy is the European experiment, really. I mean, given that Europe basically failed to learn from China, basically failed to learn from South Korea. North Korea we still don't know about, but we didn't really learn from the excellent job done in South Korea to contain the virus with massive testing, social containment, following up of many individual cases in South Korea. They're doing very well, and the number of new cases there is reducing. So failing to learn from China, failing to learn from South Korea, let's hope Europe now learns from Italy. And there are very encouraging signs that it is indeed learning from the Italian experience. I'm just so sorry the Italian people have had to go through this. But given that they have gone through it, let's the rest of the world learn from that experience. And indeed, there is evidence that my own government has already learned from that experience from a result of the modelling where they introduced more stringent measures, not enough by any means, but more stringent measures yesterday. We'll come on to my country. This is just the human tragedy involved in this sentence is just incalculable, isn't it? I mean, when a loved one dies, the funeral is such an important part of our culture and our grieving process, and not to be able to go to a loved one's funeral or not to have a funeral is just, yeah. Right, Spain. Great increase in cases in Spain, more deaths. I think that death figure's out of date, actually. But pleased to see Spain is responding with an intense lockdown. We need to get this down now. Then we can have the luxury of greater movement later on. But Spain's in an intense lockdown. Please telling people to go home. And already the hospitals are struggling in Spain, which is concerning because we expect large percentages of the population to become infected over the next few months who are not yet infected. So in a sense, we're still reasonably near the start of the increase in cases. Although some epidemiologists are saying, and this is remarkably encouraging and shows good signs for the global containment we've been advocating for a long time on this video, is that some epidemiologists are saying that we expect Italy, the new cases, to peak in the next few days. Now, if that's the case, that is absolutely wonderful if the cases peak in the next few days, because it means the testing, the contact tracing, the quarantining, the social distancing are working. It shows we can contain this virus. France, again, dramatic increase in cases. Again, that death figure is out of date. Now, social meetings, going around to your friends for a drink, going around to your friends for a game of cards, banned. Not suggested against, like in my country, forbidden by the French government. You see, people now know where they stand in France. And of course, the vast majority of people are complying with that because they realise the importance of this. But we really need this strong leadership that France does now seem to be enjoying, with the power of the state behind it, because then people realise how serious it is. It's not that the state can enforce every social gathering, of course it can't, but people realise it's a big wake-up call if the state mandates these measures. President Macron, country is at health war, the enemy is here and making progress, so from a very indifferent start, shall we say, leadership in France is now forging ahead with resistance to this insurgency, this fifth column in the country of France, carrying on with the military language that the president has been using. You can exercise outside, but only on your own. 100,000 police are deployed to enforce that all movement is only essential for work or for food. No socialising outside. All educational establishments closed. As I understand it, schools, universities, everything. People have to stay in their homes. They have to print out a form to go out, and this is enforced. Now, the downside to this, yesterday, as these restrictions started to be enforced, there was crowded trains leaving Paris, going to all parts of the country. Crowded trains are not good. The virus will have spread in those trains almost certainly. Going to all parts of the country, clear risk of seeding many parts of France. So good today, not so good yesterday. Now, I can't talk about every country here. You've got to follow the news in your own country. But cases in Canada are increasing. The United States, we looked at the United States in some detail on yesterday's update. There's worrying signs in the United States, of course. Very worrying signs. Germany, again, great increases in numbers, deaths indicating that it's been around for a while. Germany still relatively low number of deaths, not quite sure why that is yet. Suspended religious services, things are starting to close down, but not to close down on the scale of Italy, Spain or France as yet in Germany or in my country. So in my country we're expecting much more dramatic announcements in the next few days. Iran, great increase in numbers. We know it's more than this. Prisoners have been released. This has been a cause of concern I've had for a long time, and it remains a massive cause of concern for me for the United States. The prison population in the United States is so high, and the potential for this virus to be absolutely rampantly running through these indoor crowded institutions is terrifying. And of course they will then act as a localised epicenter for further spread. So Iran have released 85,000 prisoners on temporary release. Disappointed to see that closed shrines have been closed by the government, have been invaded by people. I think they want to go there for healing, but as we mentioned before, shrines don't have antiviral properties, so a pity that that's social unrest is happening there. Pakistan, India, hugely populated countries, cases in both countries spreading as far as we know. Pakistan's closed its borders. So tremendously concerned about Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, these crowded Asian countries, many people living at or below the poverty line, no access to anything that we would really resembles efficient healthcare for many, many people, and the same for many African countries. So the bad news is this is spreading in poor countries. I expected this to happen first. I must say the mass outbreak in Europe is a bit of a surprise. I had expected Europe to be more proactive than this, that we would take the measures that were required to stop this spread in Europe. We know about the transmissibility of this virus. We know about the levels of travel, and yet people in Italy seem to be astounded it's spread so quick. We've been talking about this on this channel for a couple of months now. This is a highly transmissible disease, and they spread. So a bit disappointing, really, that this foothold has got as bad as it has in Europe. What I initially thought was that it'd be spread from China to third world countries and poorer countries, and they'd be epicenters from where things spread out. So it doesn't quite happen the way I expected, but but the epicenters are now starting to develop in poorer countries, and the case fatality rates there could be high, unfortunately.